UbuWeb is the largest archive dedicated to free distribution of the avant-garde on the internet. It was begun in 1996. It is run for no money. We don't touch money, don't pay money, don't take money. And we just put things up because we think they're important, often without asking permission. But since UbuWeb deals with materials that are historically valuable but have very little economic importance, everybody seems to be okay with it. We live in an extraordinary time where there is no shortage of intellectual materials. As a matter of fact, there's an abundance of intellectual materials. The problem is not needing to even find more. It's a matter of making sense of what already exists. And so in this context of abundance, those who can curate and frame our digital experience are the ones that are really going to have the power and the knowledge. And we actually see that already on certain blogs like Boing Boing, who find good things and point to them, and which makes them much more powerful than the things at which they're pointing. So, I mean, it's a kind of a wonderful, messy moment that needs to be organized and needs to be curated. I feel digital knowledge is very local. You know, it's not centralized at all, and it's a group of people that are concerned around a certain subject that are going to get together and be interested in that subject. For example, UbuWeb is a group of people. We're all people that are interested in the avant-garde. It's a very small group. And so what I've collected there is trying to define, what the avant-garde is. But it's an amateur idea of the avant-garde. I'm certainly not trained in any way to be an expert. I'm not an art historian. I'm not an archivist. It's a folk practice, really. And this is becoming the new authority, is the folk practice, is what's driven by people with very local knowledge. And of course, I think Wikipedia is the best example of that. And you see that kind of sprouting lots of deep archives and deep knowledge that's very, very small. I've managed to function for 16 years, distributing free knowledge, and on the other hand, paying no money for the privilege of distributing free knowledge. So server space and bandwidth are donated to Ubu, and our mission is to get these materials out disseminated as widely as possible. But again, it's not a huge group of people that are actually interested in this stuff. It's actually very small. So, I believe in really, really free everything. Should be free. Well, I think most of these works that I host on Ubu are never made for money, never made for profit. I believe there are things that are out there that are made for profit. It's very important that you have to distinguish between different economies. I mean, there are for-profit economies, and there are medium profit economies, and there are no-profit economies. I mean, you can't just make these big blanket statements about economy and free. It's different on every case. So you have to learn what is possible and what's valuable and what type of economy you can best function in. Lady Gaga has a very different economy than what we are able to distribute on UbuWeb. And if I wanted to distribute Lady Gaga on UbuWeb, I would get sued for doing that. But if I want to distribute sound poetry on UbuWeb, people seem to think it's okay. So you have to know your field. You can't just, And I don't begrudge Lady Gaga for making that kind of money. I mean, people are going to pay for it. That's something else, though. Well, I think it's important to work as closely as possible with materials that are open source. And I should follow more closely that idea. Actually, I found out recently that MP3s are copyrighted by some corporation. So what I thought was free is actually, free and open actually isn't open. I made the mistake on Ubu of streaming Flash movies, and now Apple doesn't support Flash. So I've made some mistakes, and I'm actually paying for those mistakes. So my advice is to keep everything as much as possible in a free and backwardly compatible digital format, something that can be read back in time. Text documents seem to work really well. It doesn't really matter what happens to the technology. You can always read a text document. It seems like MP3s over the course of time are able to be played, but I think we would be better off in OGG format, things like this. In terms of the cloud, people don't have much of a choice, so they use these services that were saying, come, use us, we're free. But there's always a price. These are commercial services, and the price for mega upload or the price for all of these things came due, and everybody had to pay for those. I don't know what the alternative is. I really don't know what the alternative. Ubu is fortunate enough to have an independent server where we don't have to pay anything for it. We don't put compressed files on. There's no wait time. There's no CAPTCHA. There's no money. We're in a very, very privileged situation. But even our situation is very precarious. So it could lose it. They could pull the plug. It's costing too much money. So I think maybe the thing to really understand about digital culture is that it isn't permanent. It's impermanent and it's ephemeral. And we can try to archive and download as much as we can to preserve our slice of the web. But to assume that the web is going to be there forever is, I think, a real mistake.